The president and most of the GOP kept saying it was up to the people of Alabama. And yesterday, the people of Alabama made their choice, just saying no to credibly accused child molester Roy Moore and awarding pro-choice Doug Jones the state's first Senate seat to go to a Democrat in a quarter century. It was such an upset, even Jones seemed shocked by the results.
I think that I have been waiting all my life, and now I just don't know what the hell to say. As Dr. King liked to quote, "The moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends toward justice."
The race, as you know, was not only a subject of national attention because of accusations against Moore, but also because of the precarious Senate balance, one Donald Trump needs to maintain to get his legislation through, as he addressed today.
A lot of Republicans feel differently. They're very happy with the way it turned out. But I would have, as the leader of the party, I would have liked to have had the seat. I want to endorse the people that are running. But I will tell you that to me, it's very, very important to get this vote.
This vote he's referring to as the tax cut plan, on which House and Senate leaders announced today an agreement in principle. Just yesterday, Trump tweeted that Roy Moore will always vote with us, vote Roy Moore. But today he struck a different chord, tweeting, "The reason I originally endorsed Luther Strange," and his numbers went up mightily, "is that I said Roy Moore will not be able to win the general election. I was right. Roy worked hard, but the deck was stacked against him." We should note, according to Roy Moore, this thing isn't over yet, but for the rest of us, it is. Joining me now on what it all means are Jennifer Nassour, former chair of the state Republican Party. Hey, Jennifer. Hello. Michael Curry is chair of the National NAACP Advocacy and Policy Committee. Hey, Michael, nice to see you. Here's my thesis. Except for Donald Trump and Steve Bannon, almost every leader in the GOP privately wanted this guy to lose. Am I not right?
Yes, maybe more than privately.
Because of the trickle-down negative impact in 2018 on virtually everybody by him serving with him, right?
I mean, that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is all these people there are moral people. They have values, and they walk by their values, and they noticed that Roy Moore, by the way, had none.
So is this the end of Steve Bannon? I mean, Steve Bannon was, even though all these out-of-staters were ridiculed, he's the ultimate out-of-state, the Harvard guy, the Goldman Sachs guy, the Hollywood guy. Is he cooked after this or no?
I think that's wishful thinking. I think that Steve Bannon has nothing else to do, and so Steve Bannon needs to hang around through 2018.
Last thing on the Republican impact, Donald Trump was wrong twice here. Endorsed Luther Strange, Strange lost to Moore, endorsed Moore, Moore lost to Jones. What's the impact on Trump's? I mean, is he as feared in Congress, for example, today as he was 2 days ago?
No, I don't think Donald Trump is feared. I think that Steve Bannon is feared. And I think that this election was perfect for the members of the House and the Senate to see that they don't need to worry about Steve Bannon. And I think for the president, maybe this is a good message to him to stay out of elections as much as he possibly can and focus on the country.
And also the other lesson is don't read USA Today. Did you read the editorial in USA Today? I just want to read one line from this editorial. I've never seen anything like this about a sitting president in a mainstream newspaper. A president who would all but call Senator Kirsten Gillibrand a whore is not, and that's based upon the tweet he said that she'd do anything begging for money, is not fit to clean the toilets in the Barack Obama Presidential Library or to shine the shoes of George W. Bush. Now, I assume this is heartfelt. When I read something like this from a mainstream publication, I get the sense that they smell blood in the water. What's your reaction to these incredibly tough words?
Well, I think it's a collective frustration we're all feeling. It's in the media, it's in the Republican Party, it's in the Democratic Party, and you're seeing it play out in the editorials. You're even seeing the frustration in print and broadcast, where more and more reporters are almost stepping outside of the objective in reporting and really starting to be frustrated with his lack of truth-telling and his bad leadership.
How big of a deal is this for the Democrats? I mean, while all the Democrats are crowing from top to bottom, the reality is Doug Jones would not be a senator if he wasn't running against Roy Moore, just like Donald Trump would not be president if he wasn't running against Hillary Clinton, with all due respect to the Clinton supporters. So is this as big a deal, or is this a one-and-done kind of thing in one sort of odd state at an odd time?
Well, it's a big deal. I think you're going into the 2018 elections, momentum matters. And the reality is that there were people who sort of tied themselves, including the Republican Party, the RNC, tied themselves to this candidate. So it gives momentum for the Republican Party to say, you know what, they've now sort of compromised their morality, their objectivity in supporting a candidate who clearly was not the right person for the U.S. Senate, and quite, I would say, even not for America. He's not a good person to elect in office.
I think the one consensus coming out of yesterday, well, no one knows really what did this. Was it the assault of the 14-year-old, what it was? It's clear that black voters delivered this victory to Jones. Higher share of turnout than Barack Obama got. And when you compare it to Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in the same state, Hillary Clinton in Alabama in 2016, Hillary Clinton got 89% of black votes. Jones got 96%. And as a result of that, Charles Barkley, who would have thought he's the greatest political analyst of our time, former basketball star, had this to say after the outcome was known last night. Here's Barkley.
This is a wake-up call for Democrats. They've taken the black vote and the poor vote for granted for a long time. It's time for them to get off their ass and start making life better for black folks and people who are poor.
You agree with Barkley?
I do. I mean, I often cringe anytime Charles Barkley says anything that has to do with race. But in this case, I do. I think, it's been a conversation within the Democratic Party for a long time that they've taken us for granted. They don't put the money into our communities when they're campaigning until last minute. They ignore our issues until they need us. And the reality is we got to turn that around. I am extremely proud of the turnout, particularly by black women in Alabama who showed up in large numbers.
98%.
98%, 17% of the electorate, and showed up in strong numbers.
Isn't that a huge problem for your party? I mean, the conventional wisdom until yesterday was the black vote was not going to turn out. New York Times and others were doing these random half-assed surveys of black people in the street. We don't even know there's an election tomorrow. Well, it turns out they knew there was an election tomorrow. This was a huge thing. Does that translate beyond the borders of Alabama?
Well, so I don't know if it's big for the Democratic Party, but I think if you do listen to what Barkley had to say, it's the who's been taken for granted. Well, we know that women have been taken for granted. We know that minorities have been taken for granted. In this particular election, with these two folks, it didn't matter what they were, what they looked like, what race they were. I think the message was you have one very, very bad character, and then you have one guy, I don't even know what he stands for. It almost doesn't matter as long as it's not him.
When you say one very, very bad guy, obviously white women in Alabama missed that message, because I assume you saw yesterday, 63% of them, 63% to 34%, voted for Roy Moore. What does that say to you as a woman who organizes? What's the name of your thing? Conservative Women for a Better Future? Is this Conservative Women for a Better Future when 63% of white women in Alabama vote for, as I said, a credibly accused child molester?
No, but maybe they're the same women that haven't gotten the message on sexual harassment yet. Maybe they're the same women who let things happen and are they're part of a society that they think is run by men, and they're doing what their husbands tell them to. That's what I think is going on there.
Would there have been a deal on the tax thing as early as there was today if the Republicans weren't concerned that Doug Jones is coming to town and maybe Susan Collins is shaky and maybe Corker is shaky and they could lose this whole thing? Is that why there was a fast outcome here?
I think they were moving quickly in that direction, but there was all deliberate speed once they realized that they lost that seat.
What do you think about that?
Yes. I mean, of course. It's politics. The president has an agenda. He needs to get his agenda through. There's a new guy coming in. Whether they can sway him to vote with them or not is yet to be seen, because he's going to have to run in a few years anyway. So who knows where he's going to be.
Well, let's talk about, before running, he's got to serve. A lot of Democrats are suggesting he should begin serving now. He should be able to vote now. The people of Alabama have said, I want that guy to represent me. Should he not be part of this tax deliberation in the next few days?
I feel like we went through this with Scott Brown.
Yeah, and you know,
exactly.
And you said, by the way, that Scott Brown should be seated immediately?
Yes, I did.
Who?
Beyond
you. You ever heard of Jay Sekulow?
Yeah.
You know what he does now? He's a lawyer for the President of the United States. In 2010, he said Scott Brown should, as you did, apparently.
Everyone did.
So it's good for the goose, as they say. Should this guy be seated immediately?
Yes. Listen, I think if you think it should be on one end, I think it should be on the other end. I think both, if you're going to say something, it should apply overwhelmingly to both sides. You can't switch your opinion. I think he should be seated immediately. And I do. And I think that it was incumbent upon Congress. By the way, we've had a president since January to have gotten tax reform passed. They should have done this. They shouldn't have waited until last minute. And they knew that Jeff Sessions was the Attorney General. This isn't new news to anyone.
30 seconds left, 15 seconds only. One thing we touched on only in passing. What does this do for the MeToo movement?
I don't quite know. I think that all of this is sort of playing out. We're trying to figure out what the next step is. But I think we all got to figure that out.
Only 1.5 point margin, but it's better than losing by 1.5 points. What does it do for the MeToo movement when the guy accused essentially goes down the tubes in a Republican state?
So you know what? It continues to bring more awareness. And as a woman, I think that one of the things that, we are looking for is awareness of the bad behavior that has happened and going toward the future to make sure that that does not happen for future generations.
You were the chair of the Republican Party. Is that correct?
Yes,
I want to be clear.
know.
Nice to see you, Jennifer and Sir. Michael Curry, thank you.
you.
Good to see you both.